Episode 341, Circling Her Prey. Surprised by Haley's words, Lena's eyes widened again as she looked at Haley. She clenched her fists tightly, slightly crumpling the documents she held, and the scornful look on her face intensified. This woman, what is she trying to do? Is she just showing off? Does she expect me to watch her shameful advances? How can President Clark let a woman like her lay a hand on him? I thought he didn't like women. What did she do to make him act this way? Lena cursed internally, unable to understand why her boss was acting so differently. While Lena was lost in her hateful thoughts, Brad looked at Haley questioningly. Then at the small number of documents left on his desk that he had to go through. Without giving it much more thought, he agreed with Haley, causing Lena's expression to become even darker. She gritted her teeth and glared at Haley as her fingers dug into the palms of her hands. Okay, continue, Brad said. Lena pressed her lips together, took a deep breath, and started giving her report again, the whole time continuing to curse Haley in her head. You're trying to make me angry, testing my patience in front of my boss to try and make me explode and embarrass myself, huh? Nice move, lady. That's what a typical scheming woman would do. I'm sure you're nothing more than a distraction for him. You don't even look rich. You're just a fragile, incompetent weakling who has nothing but her body and face at her disposal. Someone like you will never win against me. Never. You better prepare yourself for war. You will pay for this. Just you wait. As Lena continued to give her report, Haley lightly massaged Brad's back and listened intently to Lena. When she finally looked up at Lena, she could see the intensity in her eyes had increased. Haley's eyes also changed. The blank, unaffected look slowly morphed into a fierce gaze. It was as if she was quietly turning into a predator who had the perfect prey in her sights. Haley was testing Lena, but as she had never dealt with anything like this before, she was extra careful. As she thought back to the woman she was 5 years ago, it occurred to her that she had been naive when it came to dealing with this type of situation. She remembered the last time she had felt like this, that she had run away and gotten drunk. In retrospect, she could see that that was a childish response. This time, she wanted to face her feelings properly. She knew this type of situation was bound to come up, and although she didn't know exactly what to do, she remembered that Amy had told her not to just sit there and do nothing. So she relied on her instincts to help her deal with this. There was no way she was ever going to run away again. She was going to face this woman head on her own terms. Her intention was never to make the woman jealous or anything. What she had in mind was to simply take this woman down and crush all her hopes about being able to take her husband away from her. Haley couldn't deny that she had the unpleasant feeling of jealousy when she had seen just how close this woman was standing to her husband. But her trust in Brad and her mental toughness helped her stay calm despite those feelings. So instead of focusing on her feelings, she focused on the woman. She had noticed right from the moment she had entered the room that this woman had an obvious interest in her husband. Haley had immediately assessed her as a target, and realizing the extent of this woman's delusion, she decided to act. She drew out her attack, slowly circling in on Lena. She knew this woman wouldn't surrender easily. Haley had the sense that if she didn't do this right, this woman would come back and try again and again. She felt like they were on a battlefield and that her opponent would fight as if crazed. So Haley had to act now. She knew Brad would never betray her, but she didn't want any unnecessary drama or outside sources having a negative impact on their relationship. After waiting all this time to be together, there was no way Haley would let anything or anyone get in their way. She didn't want to waste a lot of time on this kind of trouble, so she wasn't going to let the issue drag on. She wasn't a fan of long, drawn-out conflicts, so she wanted to end this with a quick duel here and now, because there were lots of other things that were more important for her to focus on. Episode 342. Haley continued to listen to Lena giving her report and noticed that Lena had been able to regain her composure and focus on her job. Haley was not surprised by this. After all, Brad had hired her, and he wouldn't tolerate anyone but the best working for him. There was no way Lena would have survived working for someone like Brad if she crumbled so easily. So Haley was willing to give credit where it was due. But it was precisely the reason Haley needed to neutralize this threat now. This woman had the potential to ruin her life and waste a lot of Haley's time and energy dealing with chaos. It was better to nip this in the bud. Haley also recognized that this woman was a loyal and dedicated employee, and likely a huge help to Brad and his company. She didn't want drama to ruin this woman's career. She just wanted this woman to wake up from the delusion of thinking that she had a chance with Brad before it was too late. So Haley would extinguish her hopes swiftly and make sure she lost all interest in pursuing her husband. When Lena stopped talking to pass Brad another document, Haley took the opportunity to interject. "Brad, darling, you need to congratulate me." Of course, Brad was again dumbstruck by her darling, but he managed to answer quickly this time. "Did something good happen?" he asked. Haley handed him an invitation in a way that made sure that Lena saw the presidential seal on it. When Lena saw this, she of course already knew what the invitation was for, and her eyes almost bulged out with shock. Everyone knew that the United States National Treasure Award was the most honorable and prestigious award ever given to anyone in this country. This award was given out once every decade, and the people who received these awards would be given the title of a national treasure. It signified that these people had contributed to the most astounding and tremendous work done for the betterment of the country. And the most amazing fact about this award was that it was only given to one or two people only once in 10 years. It was one of those things to be absolutely proud of. "Congratulations. You know I'll be in the front row watching you during the award ceremony," Brad said, looking extremely proud of her. Lena almost choked to death. "What? She's an awardee? This woman will soon be crowned as a national treasure? How is that even possible? Who the hell is this woman? This is a lie, right?" While Lena was still drowning in a pool of disbelief and denial, Haley suddenly pouted at Brad. Noticing Haley's reaction, Brad chuckled softly and looked at her with fondness. "What's this? You're not satisfied with my congratulatory remark, huh?" Brad asked. Haley bit her lip, and Brad couldn't help himself. He hadn't seen her cute pout in years, and it was too much for him. "Come here," Brad said, his chuckle subsiding. The look of fondness in his eyes deepened into something more magical, and it called to her. She moved around him, and he tugged her down to sit on his lap. Haley's eyes widened in surprise, but she went with the flow. "Okay, since you're not satisfied with my words alone, I'll satisfy you with my body," Brad boldly said. Haley, Tyler, and Lena were all left speechless, and the entire room fell silent. Haley and Tyler had identical thoughts, thinking shameless Brad was at it again. while Lena was left stunned, thinking that her cold, closed-off boss wasn't capable of saying something like this. She had almost collapsed on the floor hearing him.
"This is my way of congratulating you with all my heart and soul,"
Brad said in a sweet and gentle voice that broke the silence. He turned his chair and kissed the woman in his arms. Episode 343, Dumbstruck. By the time their lips parted so they could catch their breath, Haley's face was flushed red down to her neck. She hadn't expected Brad to kiss her that intensely, even with his staff and brother in the room watching them. While Haley was still trying to regain control of her breathing, Brad moved his face closer again. But Haley caught his face before their lips collided once more. "Brad," Haley uttered.
"Your lips are like a drug. I think I'm addicted,"
he replied, glaring at her. It took a second for Haley to react, and Brad took advantage to kiss her again. His kisses were a bit rougher this time, as if he was starving and she was his food source. "He's still aware that other people can see us, right? Wait, why am I still surprised by his shamelessness? He has definitely taken the crown of the most shameless man I know now," she thought, before getting lost in his irresistible kisses. The second time their lips parted, Haley bumped her forehead against Brad's to prevent him from kissing her again. Brad, your employee's still here," Haley said as she breathed heavily. Brad looked displeased at her words. Haley wondered at the look. Does he really want to continue here? How can he not be satisfied after a kiss like that?
"It's all right. My employees are well trained. They are not the type to meddle with their boss's affairs and know how to be discreet,"
Brad replied. His voice was gentle, but Haley could hear the authority in his tone. Although he spoke softly, he had made sure Lena, who was standing frozen like a street post, could hear him. Haley coughed awkwardly at his words. He's not embarrassed at all? Not even with Tyler standing here? "I'm very satisfied with your congratulatory kisses, so you can continue working now," Haley said, her cheeks still covered in a deep blush. She made to stand up, but Brad didn't release her. Instead, he pulled her closer and put his mouth next to her ear.
"We will be continuing this when we get home, right?"
he asked. Haley jolted at the feeling of his seductive, warm breath. He had spoken in a soft voice, but Lena was close enough to hear him.
"Right?"
Brad asked again when Haley remained speechless. The way he gripped her seemed like he was telling her that he wouldn't let go if she didn't agree. "Okay," she agreed, surrendering to his request. "Let go now." A warm smile lit Brad's face, and he let go of her. As soon as Haley stood up, she turned toward Lena. She was expecting the woman to react violently or throw some deadly glares at her. But to her surprise, the woman seemed to already be losing her fighting spirit. She stood there like a zombie, and her complexion was absolutely wretched, as though she had just witnessed the end of the world. Was that too much for her to handle? Haley wondered. Haley looked at Lena with a bit of pity in her eyes, but that didn't mean she planned to go easy on her, and her sympathy quickly dissipated. Haley had no plans to show any mercy to anyone who tried to steal her loved ones away. Nothing was more important to her than her husband and son. "Sorry for the interruption. You may now continue your report," Haley said to Lena. Lena just gave her a blank stare. Brad, on the other hand, immediately refocused on work and started typing on his laptop with incredible speed.
Lena, continue,
Brad stated without looking up from his laptop. Still frozen, she swallowed hard. She forced herself to continue, but she was a complete mess. She stopped, restarted, stuttered, and could barely get a full sentence out. After speaking a few words, Brad raised his head and threw a deadly glare at Lena, causing her to bow her head. Brad couldn't tolerate her actions anymore. After all, he trained his staff to function well and never be affected by any distractions while doing their jobs. He trained them to withstand even the highest level of pressure.
What's going on here? Is this woman thrown off because she saw her boss kissing his wife? When did Lena become so incompetent?
He wondered, annoyed.
Lena,
Brad barked. His voice was the complete opposite of how he had spoken to Haley. He was like a ruthless ruler about to punish a misbehaving subordinate, causing Lena to immediately jolt in fear. I'm very sorry, Mr. Clark. I'm not actually feeling well right now. Lena quickly came up with an excuse to try and redeem herself. She knew it was unlikely he would be convinced by such an excuse, as he expected anyone unwell to stay home and rest. He only wanted people's best performance on the job. So, thinking she was already doomed, she prepared herself for the worst when an adorable voice rang out in the room, causing everyone to turn toward the door. Mommy! Episode 344, Ghosts. Lena was already on the verge of breaking down. Watching the man she had been dreaming of being with for years, kissing another woman so passionately right before her eyes, felt like she was being stabbed by a sharp knife in the heart 1,000,000 times. She couldn't believe that her boss was intimate with this woman, this upstart who had just appeared out of nowhere. What was worse was that it seemed like he was the one who was head over heels in love with her. She had just witnessed how gentle his tone was when he spoke to her. He seemed like a completely different person interacting with her. He had even said he was addicted to her and wanted to pick up where they had left off when they got home. Does this mean they're living together? Lena questioned. No. This can't be happening. This isn't real. I'm just having a bad dream, right? Surely I'll wake up any second. Come on, Lena, wake up. Unable to fully accept the harsh reality that was clearly unfolding before her eyes, Lena held firmly to the last string of hope in her heart. She was already numb after having received all these blows and could hardly move her feet, let alone report to her boss intelligently. So she had started fabricating another lie in her head, desperately trying to create something she could hold on to. Lena persisted in thinking that this was just a nightmare and that she would wake up soon. Or if it was real, then this woman was surely just a mistress her beloved Brad had found. Someone who was a devil disguised as an angel, the type Brad would discard as soon as he was done playing with her. But just as she had started to buy her own lie, another blow landed without warning. Lena was so shocked when Sean, the prince who had never even spoken to her, suddenly appeared and called the woman Mommy as he ran toward her. Of course, Lena knew how aloof and impenetrable Sean was, and she had thought it would be impossible to ever accept anyone as a mother, let alone this woman that Lena had labeled a disposable mistress. Brad's staff knew that he had been looking for his wife for 5 years. They were all aware of his disinterest in women because he was still in love with his wife and was still loyally waiting for her return. Asking anything or talking about the boss's wife was taboo throughout the entire corporation. Even Brad's business partners knew this because whenever someone uttered the word wife, Brad's mood would drastically change into something extremely terrifying. He had never even batted an eye, cutting all ties to an important business partner just because that CEO told him to forget about his wife and find someone even more beautiful, offering to set him up with someone. Lena had been there, and she had seen how Brad took those words and actions so seriously that he retaliated by crippling the CEO's company. For 5 years, Lena had been well aware that Brad had never stopped looking for his missing wife. Even if they had known nothing about her, Lena, who had more interaction with Brad than any other employee, saw how desperate he was. The only thing she had heard about the woman was the rumor that his wife had left the day she had given birth to their son. No one had been able to think of the reason why his wife would disappear without a trace. But apart from the rumors, any other information about her had been shut down tightly, most likely by Brad himself. After years of searching, Lena had begun to believe that his wife was dead. She knew how resourceful Brad was and the extent of his hacking skills. He also had access to an elite network of spies around the world. If Brad hadn't been able to find her in 5 years, she believed that there was no one left to find. There was no way anyone would be able to hide from him for that long. So, for years now, Lena had truly believed that Brad's wife was long dead. It was the only explanation that made sense. She even believed that no one could compete with her as the future Mrs. Clark, unless the ghost wife somehow rose from the dead.
Mommy, I've been waiting for you in the car. What's taking you so long?
Sean asked. Haley picked him up and held him lovingly. I'm sorry, baby. I was helping your dad relax a bit. His work is stressful, Haley replied. Their son looked at his father as though he was inspecting him to see if something was wrong with him.
You helped him relax?
Sean asked as he tilted his head curiously, looking as though he couldn't understand why his father, who looked fine and lively, needed his mother's help to relax. Yes, I massaged his back a little, Haley replied. This confused Sean. He had seen his Auntie Amy hire a professional to give her a massage.
Why do you need to be the one to do that? Daddy could just hire someone to do that, right?
Sean questioned. Haley lovingly ruffled the little boy's hair. Well, it's one of the things a wife can do for her husband. Of course, it works the other way too. If I'm tired or need help relaxing, your daddy, as my husband, can also give me a massage to help me relax. Get it? Haley explained, looking quite amused at Sean's curiosity. Lena, who had heard what Haley said clearly enough, was again shocked. She looked as though she had just seen a real ghost, and her eyes were filled with horror. Wife? She's his wife? Episode 345, Victory. While Haley had been looking around Brad's office a few minutes ago, she had discreetly sent Amy a text message, telling Amy that she needed Sean. Upon receiving that message, Amy had deduced what her badass best friend was trying to do. So she had immediately contacted Tyler, and all this time, the two of them had been exchanging messages to perfectly coordinate Sean's grand entrance. Tyler, who was still a bit miffed at Amy, knew he had to cooperate with her to fulfill this mission. However, he wasn't going to satisfy her with all the juicy details of the operation. So, from the very beginning, he had only given her very brief descriptions of the situation inside the office. When he and Haley had entered the room, he sent Amy a message. Target acquired. Amy, who was sitting impatiently in the car, had been eagerly awaiting Tyler's update. When her phone had vibrated, she had immediately looked at the message, but she had become confused upon reading it. Amy had been a little bit disappointed at the lack of information from Tyler, so she had sent a reply full of questions. What is happening? How does Haley look? Is she jealous? Do you think she will run away like last time? After waiting a few minutes, she received another message. Target on lockdown. Huh? Can't this man give me more to work with here? Ugh, he's doing this on purpose. I'm sure of it. She complained silently so as not to wake Sean. Frustrated with Tyler's updates, Amy wanted to go crazy when she received one more message. Target's arms and legs have been shot. Target still standing. Damn it, Tyler. Can't you give me more details? Almost going berserk in the car, Amy forced herself to calm down. Easy, Amy. I will just ask him face to face later. When she finally relaxed, Amy read the message again, and she smiled mischievously and proudly. Looks like my Haley is following my instructions and taking action. I wonder what she's doing, she thought. Unfortunately, Amy's relaxed mood lasted for mere seconds, and she burst again. In the end, she could barely contain herself. She was so close to getting out of the car, going up to the office, and pressing her ear against the door to eavesdrop on the situation, that she had sent Tyler another message. My beauty, tell me what my student Haley is doing. I need to know. You're torturing me right now, you know. She had tried a different method to get answers from him, but he had still completely ignored her pleas, knowing its effect on her. At that point, Haley had sent her message to Amy, and Amy had quickly messaged Tyler so they could coordinate the finale of this operation. My beauty, our dear Haley has asked for a great finale. I am on my way up with Sean. We need to time this attack to perfection, so I need to know when to let Sean in the room, okay? Tyler gave her a one-word answer. Affirmative. Amy, at this point, had been very excited to finally be able to leave the car and be closer to the action. Sean, who had just woken up, had rubbed his eyes and looked around in a daze. Where's Mommy? He asked. Amy cuddled the little man as she replied, Your mommy is with your daddy. I'll take you to her now. As Amy was heading up with Sean, she heard another buzz from her phone. Target shot in the heart, ready to commence the final attack in 3 minutes. Perfect. We are on our way. Amy could barely contain her excitement. Here we go. I hope this works. One final text had arrived from Tyler. Reinforcement enter. The door had slowly opened, and as soon as Sean had seen his mom, he had run straight to her, calling out, Mommy! And Amy was finally in on the action. Oh, I see. Mommy, you got tired from massaging Daddy, right? Sean asked intently. And before Haley could reply, he asked his mother to put him down. As soon as Haley put him down, the little guy took her hand and led her toward the couch. Sean asked her to sit on the couch like a gentleman. Everyone was looking at them, including Brad, who was curious about what his son was about to do, even though he already had a hunch about what he might be thinking. Sean then climbed on the couch and knelt behind his mother. I'll massage you while we wait for Daddy, he said sweetly. Haley's lips once again curved up a little, causing Brad, Amy, and Tyler to widen their eyes at yet another surprise. She smiled, right? Amy whispered as she tugged Tyler's shirt so hard that the man shook. She almost yelled, but because of her fear that Brad might scold her for yelling in his office, Amy had to whisper her excitement to Tyler. Did you see that? She smiled, right? Amy repeated. This time she put one of her arms around Tyler's neck and pulled him until his ear was brushing up against her cheek. My plan was successful, right? She continued, unable to restrain herself from shouting anymore. Then she suddenly dragged Tyler out the door. As soon as the door closed, Amy yelled like she had just won the lottery. Tyler just stared at the ecstasy on her face and leaned against the wall. When she finally settled down, she dashed back to Tyler and looked at him with stars in her eyes. So, what happened? I saw that Lena seemed dead already, so I'm sure the show is over. Now it's time for you to talk. Tell me what happened. What did my Haley do to kill her like that? I actually thought this might be a long, drawn-out battle, but that woman seems to have lost all her will to fight, right? Right? Now talk. Tell me. As she persisted, trying to get him to talk, He breathed in deeply, then caught her face in his hands, pulling her closer to him. Didn't you say that you hate me? I won't be a storyteller for someone who hates me, he said. Amy had no response and stood blinking at him. Meanwhile, the last of Lena's hope finally crumbled to ashes. She was like a warrior on the battlefield who had just experienced tragic defeat. Finally, the bullet had pierced through her delusional heart, and she simply stood there like a lifeless vessel. Anyone who saw her would think she had just learned that the world had ended. For her, it had. The wife that she had thought was long dead, the woman Brad had been desperately searching for all these years, was not only alive, but sitting here in front of her. When Lena looked at Haley, goosebumps spread across her whole body. Haley had become a formidable and unparalleled phoenix in her eyes. She instantly became a giant risen from the dead. And Lena was nothing more than a baby chick. Episode 346, Oblivious. Sean continued massaging Haley's back with his little hands. She was delighted, and she thought that her heart would burst because of his cuteness. Brad was still blissfully dazed, looking at Haley as if she were an angel. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Lena looked traumatized, as if she had undergone a life-altering experience. Looking into her eyes to see if there was any fight left in her. She didn't see any and guessed that Lena still had enough self-respect to give up. The complete surrender in her eyes was enough for Haley to drop her weapons and end the war. But she still didn't want her working closely with Brad. She didn't want her to have a chance to try again. She needed to wait for the right time to make her move, though. Lena wasn't just a regular worker, and she had known Brad and the Clarks for a long time. She was one of his top employees and wouldn't be easily replaced. Darling, I don't think Lena's feeling well. Why don't you let her take a break? She asked. Brad snapped out of his daze and glared at Lena. He remembered her terrible performance. He had always been strict with his people so that he could maintain full control over them. He wanted to punish her, but he controlled himself around Sean and Haley. He clenched his fists and looked at her with a terrifying gaze.
Leave. This isn't over yet,
he said. Lena seemed to expect a reprimand. She bowed her head, turned, and stumbled out the door. The two people who had been bickering just outside Brad's office went silent when the door opened. Amy smirked mischievously when she saw the dejection on Lena's face. She looked like a loser who had been soundly defeated. Amy hated women who tried to break up families, and she mocked Lena. Tisk tisk, that's what you get for trying to destroy their family, she said as she approached her. Listen, Miss Secretary, you don't stand a chance. The only woman who is good enough to be with President Clark is his wife, who is also the mother of his son. Get it? Wake up and stop being delusional, or she'll crush you into little specks of dust. She flashed a nasty smile, and Lena, who had never been spoken to like that before, raised her hand to slap her. Someone grabbed her hand before it made contact. Both women's eyes widened as Tyler stepped between them. Lena, she's right. Stop before you do something you'll regret for the rest of your life, he said in a firm voice before he let go of her hand. Lena's knees shook. She saw the warning in Tyler's eyes, and it terrified her. Seeing the sorry state she was in and wanting to avoid another confrontation, Tyler took Amy's hand and looked at her. Let's go in, he said. Amy protested. Huh? You're being too nice, Mr. Beauty, she said. I can't let her off so easily. She needs to learn her lesson. She was so worked up that she managed to slip out of Tyler's grasp. But before she could do anything, he wrapped his arms around her waist and held her still. Behave yourself. What's the point of attacking her now? Look at her. Do you think she even understood anything you said? He asked, and Amy realized that she would be wasting her time. Serves her right. But if she ever tries anything again, she began. Don't worry, Haley won't give her a chance, he said. You're right. But you need to talk to Brad. He's so oblivious that it could easily happen again with someone else. You know he is. She cut him off. That's why you need to talk to him. Tell him to watch out for stuff like that. It's kind of his fault because he was so clueless. He should have seen what she was trying to do. He could have ended her delusions before they got out of hand. And what if she had been crazy enough to try to take advantage of him or something? You know that desperate people will do whatever it takes to get what they want. You need to talk to him. Her outburst left him speechless. Why is she taking her anger out on me? He wondered. She kept going. I think that Haley needs to punish him for being so clueless. Wait. Speaking of punishment. A devilish smile flashed across her face. Tyler knit his brows. What is she up to? What crazy idea just occurred to her? That smile is too mischievous, he thought. While she enjoyed whatever thoughts were flashing through her mind, he turned serious. Don't interfere too much. Let them solve their problems on their own, he said. Amy's smile faded. I won't interfere. I'll just set the scene for them. That's all I've ever done. The rest is always up to them. Yeah, okay, Miss Meddling Cupid. What's your plan this time? He asked. I'm just thinking about a fun punishment for your clueless brother, she replied. Fun? Wait and see, Mr. Beauty. Episode 347. Did you notice anything? Amy and Tyler went into Brad's office. Tyler, Brad said, take over from here. Tyler approached him lazily and said, Why don't you just call the others in? Brad's eyes turned deadly. You're twice as fast, so just do it and don't complain, he said impatiently. Tyler sighed. You're not even trying to hide your eagerness to go home. Where did your workaholic self go? He asked as he grabbed the documents from the desk. Shut up and do it. Tyler sighed again and was about to get started when Haley spoke. Brad, I want to have a look around the building while you're working, she said. Me too, Amy said. He nodded and called Ken to give them a tour. After the three of them left the office, Brad and Tyler got to work. Tyler quickly caught up with Brad, and after a few minutes, he leaned on the desk and relaxed. Done, he said. So, what are you going to do about Lena? Brad was still working, but paused and looked up from his laptop. She needs to be reprimanded, he said in a bored tone. I was very disappointed with her performance today. He kept working. Did you seriously not notice anything? Tyler asked. And when Brad looked at him with furrowed brows, he continued. Why do you think she was always the one to report to you? She even brought you the other assistant's reports. People think that she gets special treatment. Brad looked confused. Tyler sighed and asked, Did you notice anything about Haley? Of course I did. She's my wife. But not legally. Brad's expression suggested that he would strangle Tyler if he said something like that again. What did you notice about her? He asked, trying to lighten the atmosphere. Brad said, She said she wanted to talk to me when we get home. Is she going to tell him what she thinks of Lena? Tyler wondered. Tell her what you noticed about her, he said. Mm-hmm. Tyler smiled. He knew how honest Brad and Haley were with each other, and how much they trusted each other. They told each other everything, which was why their bond was unbreakable. Ken and his small tour group ended up going straight back to the car. Amy had been dying to talk to Haley since Tyler hadn't told her anything. Since Sean was with them, she had to keep quiet. But as soon as they got to the car, she turned to the boy and asked, "Sean, can I talk to your mom? It's really important. You can stay here with your Uncle Ken." He glanced at his mother and then said,
Okay, Aunt Amy.
Amy was delighted. She looked in her bag and pulled out a thick book. "I have a present for you because you're so nice. Ta-da!" she said. She knew how much he loved reading, and the book would keep him busy for a while. His eyes sparkled when he saw it. "I need her for an hour, okay?" she said.
An hour?
He replied, looking hesitant. "Don't worry, we'll come back as soon as possible. We can't talk here, so we have to go somewhere else. Your dad will be done in about an hour, so you can just read until then. Maybe Uncle Ken can take you to a park and you can read there. Then we'll all go home," she said. Sean thought for a few seconds and then nodded.
Okay, but take care of Mommy?
Amy nodded. "Don't worry, sweetie. Your mommy's pretty tough. She doesn't need my protection," she thought. Haley and Amy both kissed his forehead and got out of the car. Alan got out of the driver's seat. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the nearest bar," Amy said. Episode 348. Don't follow us. "Alan, wait here, okay? Don't follow us. We don't need a bodyguard. Haley's tougher than you now," Amy said. Alan replied, "You know I can't do that, Miss Amy. Even if Miss Haley can take care of herself now, I still need to watch over her, especially since you're with her." She raised her eyebrows. "Do you think I can't take care of myself?" she asked. When she got no response, she narrowed her eyes and glared. "You little. Just be thankful I made that deal, or I would make you regret underestimating me," she thought. She said, "Don't worry, little Alan. I'll ask my dear Tyler to teach me martial arts. You'd better be prepared. There's still plenty of time for you to practice fighting, but you'd better get started. You'll be the first person I beat up. Now be good and stay here. Don't follow us. You're not one of those guys who follows women around, are you?" She smiled mischievously and led Haley away. Alan was speechless. Did she just call me little Alan? And Tyler is her dear now? And does she think I'm some sort of stalker? No wonder she drives Tyler crazy, he thought. Amy and Haley sat down on a corner table in the bar. Amy ordered drinks and then started asking questions. Her excitement was visible. She couldn't wait to hear about how Haley had broken Lena's spirit. She squealed with delight and admiration as Haley filled her in. She was like a diehard fan following the story of her favorite female protagonist. She sighed with regret at having missed the action, but she also clapped when Haley described Lena's reaction. When the story ended, Amy calmed down. Hearing the details was only part of her plan for their conversation. It was time to work on the other part. They needed to come up with a suitable punishment. But something unforeseen interrupted her. Haley dozed off. "Haley? Hey, wake up," she said, putting her hand on Haley's shoulder and gently shaking her. Her eyes widened in shock when Haley's head hit the table. Huh? Something's wrong. Isn't she supposed to be a soldier now? She thought. She looked at Haley's drink and was shocked to see that it was still half full. She sighed. After all this time, and despite how tough she had become, her friend still couldn't handle a drink. Has she even had a drink in the last 5 years? Why didn't she tell me she could only handle a few sips? Brad's going to kill me, she thought. She looked around in a panic. She wanted to cry, but no tears came. She had planned to get Haley just a little drunk. before bringing up her plan for Lena's punishment. But she hadn't expected her to pass out. Amy shook her and helped her stand up so that they could go back to the car. She wanted to get her back to Sean before Brad found out. But on their way back to the car, 3 men stepped in front of them and blocked their path. Haley was barely conscious, and Amy was propping her up. She glared at the men and said, "Get out of our way." They just smirked. She sensed danger. One look at them told her that they were going to cause trouble. They were drunk, and their eyes were red and leering. She needed to escape, but her other options were limited because of Haley. "I said get out of our way. Do you know who we are? My friend's husband is very powerful. Don't mess with her," she said. They laughed, and one of them touched her face. She shivered in disgust. "It'll be more fun if her husband's really so powerful," he said. Her knees weakened, and one of the men grabbed Haley. "Keep your filthy hands off her. If you touch her, you'll regret it. You can't even imagine how much trouble you'll be in. She's Kevin Clark's wife," she yelled. The men laughed harder. "Kevin Clark's wife? Really? Do you think we're stupid?" one of them asked. Another one said, "If she's the great Kevin Clark's wife, then I'm his little brother Tyler." He laughed. Episode 349, Awakening a Beast. Alan had ignored Amy and followed her and Haley into the bar. He had taken a table far enough away from them to observe them unnoticed and had been pleased to see that the bar was quiet and calm. He had watched how much Haley was drinking. He had feared that either she or Amy would get drunk and cause a scene, but her occasional sips had put that fear to rest. He had only gotten up to take a quick trip to the restroom, but when he had come back, they weren't there. He was flustered, and he had to ask the bartender where they had gone. By the time he had caught up with them, something unthinkable was happening. 3 men had accosted them, and one of them was holding Haley and trying to kiss her. There was no way he was going to let them harm Haley. If anything happened to her, Brad would kill him. He grabbed his gun and aimed at the man. He was still far away from them, and since he didn't have time to get closer, his only choice was to shoot from a distance. He was one of Brad's best shooters, and he was confident in his skills. He had never missed a target and was aiming to kill. He was about to pull the trigger when his eyes widened. He froze. The man had awakened a beast. Haley's hand was wrapped around his throat like a metal claw. Her grip wasn't strong enough to hold him for long, but she knew how to find pressure points to immobilize him temporarily. While he was subdued, her nails dug into his skin, and blood started flowing down his neck. He reached up to grab her wrist, but before he could pull her hand from his neck, she reached up with her other hand and grabbed his head, pulling it down and slamming it repeatedly on her knee. He fell to the ground, his face covered with blood. The fight was over so quickly that nobody had time to react. Amy had gone silent and was staring at Haley with wide eyes, and the other 2 men were frozen in disbelief. As soon as the man hit the ground, Haley started swaying. Her eyes were still partially closed, and she was only half conscious. She still seemed drunk, but terrifying energy was emanating from her. She looked as delicate as ever, but she had the aura of a monster, fighting instinctively for survival. She swayed again, but didn't fall. She broke the silence by grabbing the head of the already unconscious man and kicking him mercilessly. Her mind was hazy, but her body was burning with intensity. The only thing she felt was danger. A few years earlier, as a member of one of the world's fiercest special forces, she had undergone rigorous training challenges that few people survived. One of the Thunder Squad's rules was to never get caught alive. They had been trained to fight for their lives once cornered. Even in the most hopeless situations, when they were barely conscious, drugged, or poisoned, they had learned to unleash a superhuman strength buried within them and fight to the death. But the Thunder Squad was formidable enough that no one had ever managed to corner them. They had never needed to fight to the death. So Haley was putting her training into practice for the first time. And she wasn't even conscious enough to know what she was doing. She had sensed the danger instinctively, and her body had remembered the training. Her innate beast had awakened on its own. What the hell is going on? Amy wondered. The two men holding her seemed to be asking themselves the same thing after watching such a fragile woman attack their friend. But they quickly recovered their senses. They let go of her and they turned to Haley with knives in their hands. "Haley, watch out!" Amy screamed, but Haley didn't even flinch. Alan ran toward them and pointed his gun at the men. But once again, Haley acted before he could pull the trigger. She landed a kick on one of their jaws, so Alan aimed at the other one and pulled the trigger. Amy and Haley were startled by the loud bang. Haley's eyes fell on Alan, and he felt danger. He sensed her bloodlust and knew that she would attack him next. He dropped his gun and kicked it over to Amy as Haley attacked. Her first hit wasn't hard enough to knock him out, but she was relentless and knew where to aim. Alan cursed as he defended himself. He could see that she was acting instinctively and wasn't fully in control of her own actions. She was like a wild animal, and he knew he couldn't hold her off for very long. He couldn't keep up with her, and he racked his brain to come up with a way to stop her. "Miss Amy, go open the car door," he yelled. Amy ran to the car and opened the back door in a panic. Alan tried to lead Haley toward the open door, thinking that he could push her in and lock her inside. She didn't move, though. The wild animal within her seemed to have detected a trap. Left with no other choice, Alan kept defending himself. He was a fast runner, so it occurred to him that if he could get her to chase him, he could wear her out. He broke free and started running, but to his surprise, she didn't chase him. She just stood there quietly watching him, like a tiger waiting for its prey to come within range. She was terrifying. Alan yelled at Amy to stay completely still while he absorbed more blows. Haley had hit him so many times that he was starting to ache. Damn, what the hell's going on with her? The boss is bad enough. Does she have to be terrifying too? He thought. He paused to take a breath, and she made a sudden move. He turned and ran for his life. He was relieved to see that the car he had been waiting for had just arrived. It screeched to a halt by Amy, and he sprinted toward it, pursued by Haley. Two men stepped out of the car. "Boss! Help!" he yelled as he ran toward Brad. Brad saw Haley, and his eyes widened. Episode 350, Mesmerized. Brad was stunned by what he saw. Alan was running for his life and shouting for help as if he were being chased by a ferocious animal, and he didn't care if he crashed into Brad. At that moment, he feared Haley more than he feared his boss. He didn't know that she had stopped chasing him. He was running so fast that he couldn't stop, but Brad dodged him and remained focused on his wife. So he crashed into the car. Haley was frozen in place. Brad's eyes sparkled with an indescribable emotion as he watched her. She was as beautiful as ever, even though she looked like she was possessed. A hint of madness flashed through her narrow eyes, and her long black hair danced in the wind. She was alluring and mystical, and seemed to have stepped out of the pages of a fairy tale. But there was danger behind her beauty. She looked ready to attack anyone who got too close. Ordinary people might have trembled in fear, but not Brad. He was completely mesmerized. He took a step toward her, but stopped in shock. As soon as he had moved, she had taken a step back. She was behaving like a wild beast, who, despite its own strength, realized that it was in the presence of an even stronger beast. She still felt an intense, burning energy. Her body felt light, but her mind felt heavy and clouded. She felt a familiar but dangerous presence, and she responded instinctively. Her stance changed, indicating to Brad that she was wary of him. He felt like he had been struck by lightning.
Is my wife afraid of me?
He wondered. Her thoughts and vision were blurred, so she didn't recognize the man standing a few steps away from her. She sensed his aura, though, and she knew she couldn't beat him. She stepped back. Then, she felt something different. She felt a warmth coming from him and reaching for her heart. His hypnotic aura seemed to be telling her to stay still and let him approach. He was powerful enough that she couldn't resist. And despite her training, her body would not respond to her commands to attack. After a few minutes of silence, Brad called out to her.
Haley,
he said quietly in the sweetest voice anyone had ever heard him use. He knew her training had kicked in, and she wasn't herself, but he couldn't stand seeing her so wary of him and hated the thought that she was afraid of him. He slowly reached out to her and said her name softly again.
Haley, it's me. It's okay. Everything is all right now,
he said slowly and gently. He looked like an animal tamer trying to calm a wild animal with all the sweetness and gentleness he could muster. He moved slowly and deliberately so that he wouldn't scare her. He was worried that she would run away, but she didn't move. Her eyes slowly opened and closed. She seemed to be having a hard time keeping them open. Brad spoke again after a few minutes.
Haley, it's okay,
he said as he slowly moved toward her, hoping that she wouldn't notice how close he was getting to her. He was still moving slowly, but he wanted to resolve the situation quickly. He wanted to hold her, soothe her, and ease her wariness. As he inched closer and tried to figure out what to do, a word popped into his mind. He remembered what she had called him in his office, and he remembered how he had felt. His heart had raced, and he had forgotten about everything else.
If I call her that, will she react the same way? Will it affect her as much as it affected me?
He wondered. If he said it and she froze and lowered her guard for even a second, he would catch her. He knew that she was acting on instinct, and he understood why. He knew what she had gone through over the last 5 years. Her fight outside the bar and her tenseness around him would take a toll on her body and mind. She needed to rest. He took a deep breath and reached out to her again, ready to race forward and catch her. He smiled sweetly, and his eyes shined like diamonds. He spoke gently and lovingly.
Haley, darling, please take my hand.
Episode 351. Come over.
Haley, darling, come over.
Brad's words caressed Haley's ears, and she stilled. Somewhere in her foggy and dazed consciousness, they echoed in her mind. She stared in Brad's direction, her eyes unseeing and still wary of the animalistic aura around him. But that voice, it was irresistible, luring her in.
Darling, come over,
he said again in a hypnotic tone. Involuntarily, she stepped toward him. Amy, Alan, Tyler, and Brad held their breath as they watched. Brad was relieved to be making progress. The dangerous aura surrounding Brad was unleashed when he had seen his wife in such a state, and she had instinctively felt his need to protect her, even in her daze. Although his aura deterred everyone else from getting close to her, it also stopped her from getting nearer to him. As soon as she approached him, he attempted to suppress it and exude a sense of safety and warmth. Haley relaxed a little, though she remained alert. She started moving slowly toward Brad, like in a hypnotic trance. No one dared move for fear that she would run away if startled. Brad had planned to capture her once she lowered her guard, but he didn't expect Haley would voluntarily walk toward him. He felt ecstatic, and his heart beat wildly with excitement. His wife had responded to him even when she was not fully conscious. When she eventually reached him, Brad pulled her into his embrace, and he felt her relax completely. Haley felt his warmth. She was so tired that her eyes closed. Amy's legs were unsteady as she approached them. She knew Brad might not forgive her this time for placing his wife in danger. Truth be told, she didn't even know if she could forgive herself. Although it had not been her intention, Haley had almost been harmed. She had been drugged because Amy had brought her here. Amy bit her lip. She didn't ask Tyler for help. There was no one more important to him than Brad, and there was no way he could protect her this time when it was against his brother. She was just Tyler's fiancée by name, and nothing more. She would endure this punishment on her own. Trembling, Amy walked past Tyler and toward Brad, who was still holding his wife.
I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I'm sorry. I'll accept any punishment you give me. But please don't feed me to crocodiles. Throw me in the river if you wish, she pleaded.
Hearing the fear in her voice, Brad raised his eyes to look at her.
Please don't feed me to them.
Before Brad could speak, Haley had startled awake and opened her eyes. She turned, and when she saw Amy, she moved toward her and hugged her.
Who plans to feed my friend to crocodiles? Tell me, and I will hit them and feed them to the beasts instead.
Haley's eyes were vicious. Brad was stunned. Amy's emotions were mixed. She wanted to celebrate, but she couldn't. Here was her friend, defending her fiercely, even though the situation had been her fault. Tears sprung from the corner of her eyes. Amy's mind raced to think of the least destructive outcome. What if I said that it was Brad? Would that be crazy? She thought. She breathed a sigh of relief as she noticed Haley was no longer in that awful state. But her intoxicated self was getting out of control.
Tell me, who is it?
She demanded again, cupping her friend's chin. Amy jolted at the sudden, icy surge from Brad. Terrified, a lie slipped out of her lips. Tyler, she said. It's Tyler. Haley's gaze turned toward him. Episode 352. Stay a little.
It's Tyler.
Tyler, who had been standing quietly, was dumbfounded. No, what? He said, looking confused. What the hell has happened? He thought. Why am I being accused? How on earth have I ended up in the middle of this? He straightened the moment his brother's wife laid her eyes on him. He had become her new target, and he was unsure what to do. Haley's glare bored into him. He cursed silently. Of all the names in the world, why did you choose mine? Is this your revenge for banning you from flirting? Just you wait, Amy, he thought. Then he stepped backward, cautious, as if walking in a field full of landmines. He would not give her the opportunity to attack him. Not when his brother was watching him closely. Brad would not let Tyler defend himself. Of that, he was certain. The accused man shifted his gaze toward Brad, whose eyes confirmed it. So Brad was willing him to stay put and suffer a beating from his wife. He cursed again. Damn it, Brad. You should be the one receiving it. None of this would have happened if you hadn't had scared Amy in the first place.
And I'm sure she's only in this state because she was jealous of Lena. Must I be your sacrificial lamb again? I can't believe this. Not only is my brother selling me out, even my fiancé is betraying me. What have I done to deserve this? He said to himself. Haley was 2 inches taller than Amy, so the moment she lifted her friend's chin with her finger, their faces were close together. Her eyes softened. It seemed romantic. To Tyler and Brad, Haley's face was unforgivably close to Amy's, and it looked like they were about to kiss. But Haley's actions were because of her blurred vision. Amy had felt the frosty glare emanating from Brad as soon as Haley held her. Now his deadly aura blazed, intensifying to the highest level when Haley held her chin up, causing Amy to quake in fear. Her knees wobbled again, and she was close to tears. She felt like if she made one wrong move, she would lose her head. God, someone, save me, please, she prayed. Am I really going to die here? I'll behave myself from now on. I'll be good from now on. Promise. Amy began praying to all the gods and goddesses she knew. She even included all the deities in the novels she had read out of desperation. Then, as if her prayers were answered, she realized why Brad the Great was growing colder and scarier by the second. He was jealous. Amy remembered what Tyler had told her. He had said that Brad was the super jealous type. Even gender didn't matter to him. She chided herself and racked her brain for a solution, oblivious to her fiancé's glares. Holding Haley's wrist, she moved her hand away from her chin and pulled away from her embrace. But don't worry, Tyler was just kidding. I'll deal with him, okay? She said as she nudged her friend back into her husband's arms. Then, the deadly atmosphere abated. She could breathe again. Okay, but let me know if he says any more outrageous things to you, Haley replied. Brad wrapped his arms around her as if never intending to let her go. Fine, I will. But please, go now with your husband. Your little Sean is waiting for you, Amy said, moving back quickly until she was past Tyler. As soon as Haley heard Sean's name, she turned toward Brad and held the man's face. She drew him closer to her, as if she was trying to recognize him. Oh, my little Sean, when did you grow up? No, I don't want my baby to grow up just yet, she yelled. Everyone froze in shock. As Brad stood motionless and dumbfounded, Haley raised her other hand to caress his face once again, before shaking her head violently. No, I can't accept this. I want my baby back. Didn't I tell you not to grow up too fast? Why? I want my little Sean. She became emotional. How can I make up for all the years I missed if you're all grown up now? I want the time back. Please be small again. Episode 353, Witnessing a Miracle. I want my little boy back, Haley cried. Everyone stood still as if they had just suddenly witnessed a miracle. Who would have thought that the secret weapon to unlocking Haley's tears was whatever had been put in her glass? Her unexpected reaction caused Amy to gasp and tear up. She knew how much Haley wanted to regain control over her emotions. She knew how desperate Haley was to smile and cry again. Now that Haley had finally broken through this hurdle, she was happy for her. Brad might even forgive her because of it. He would still punish her, but it wouldn't be too severe now, right? Brad, on the other hand, felt like he was suddenly in the eye of a storm. He was at a loss on what to do. His wife suddenly mistaking him for a grown-up version of her son stunned him. But witnessing her cry made him feel like his organs were being twisted.
Brad had rarely seen Haley cry in their time together 5 years ago, but when he had, his heart would bleed badly. Even though this was what he wanted, to have her cry and release all her emotions, it was still hard for him to watch. It was bittersweet. "Haley," he uttered as he raised his hand to wipe her tears. But, to his surprise, she sprang away from him, leaving his hand frozen in mid-air.
"I want my Sean,"
she cried. Brad's heart shattered. The next moment, Haley bolted, and her husband immediately chased after her. "Don't run. It's dangerous," he warned.
"Don't come any closer. I don't like you. I want my baby. You're too big. I don't want you. Go away."
The engaged couple stood watching them. By the time Haley finally stumbled, Brad was right behind her, catching her before she fell. "Listen, I'm not Sean, okay? Look at me closely. I'm your husband. He's waiting for you at home. You understand?" Brad said firmly as he held her face, and a teary Haley blinked as she stared at him. "It's me. I'm Brad, your husband. You called me darling hours ago." He comforted her in his arms and wiped her tears away with his thumb.
"My husband?"
He sighed in relief. "Yes."
"My darling?"
"Your darling." Haley tilted her head and she rubbed her eyes before she looked at him again. Then she sniffed and burst into tears again as she tugged his collar.
"I want to go home. Where's my little boy? I miss him."
"Don't worry, we're going home. He's waiting at home. So calm down for now, okay? He might get worried if he sees you crying like this," Brad said. Haley just looked at him.
"I don't want my baby to get worried, but my tears won't stop. What should I do?"
He tried to coax her with words, but Haley refused to return home. She wanted to stop crying first, so she wouldn't worry her son. She had now been crying for half an hour, causing Brad to become restless. He looked at Tyler, seeking suggestions. Tyler sighed inwardly. He wanted to ignore Brad, but he didn't want to reap consequences for it. A scene appeared in his mind, and he scratched the back of his neck. Tyler gestured something to him, and Brad furrowed his brows. It was only after Tyler repeated the gesture did Brad understand. The idea was fantastic. Why had he not thought of it before? Hadn't he wanted to do this to her all this time? "Don't worry. I'll do something," Brad said. Haley stared at him, and Brad's lips locked with hers. Episode 354, Unexpected Reactions. Brad's lips were like snowflakes melting on Haley's lips. The sensation was irresistible. Their kiss was deep and passionate, even though her response was sloppy. Brad got lost in the warmth of her mouth until they were both breathless. Their lips parted. He gazed at her, happy. His wife had finally stopped crying. She was still sniffling, but the endless flow of tears had ceased. "It stopped. You're amazing," she exclaimed. Her eyes glinted, mesmerizing him. "So, a kiss is more effective than words and hugs, then?" Brad replied. His wife had finally stopped crying. She was still sniffling, but the endless flow of tears had ceased. Haley remained silent. "Did you like it?" Brad asked playfully. "I liked it. You tasted so sweet," she said. Her words left him feeling dazed. "I want more. I want to eat you." She raised her hands and wrapped them around his neck, while eyeing him like he was her favorite dessert. Her eyes glimmered, and she looked like she was about to drool. Brad was losing his mind. He yearned to yank her close and kiss her again. She looked so seductive. He wanted to teleport them both to anywhere with a bed. He cleared his mind and then swooped her up in his arms. You can eat me whenever you want, but wait until you're sober, okay? He said as he walked toward the car. She shook her head.
But I'm sober now, look. And I've stopped crying. I don't want to wait anymore.
Brad stiffened. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he bit his lip hard. He cleared his throat, walking faster, as Alan opened the car door for him. Alan hurried to the driver's seat and turned on the ignition. He set his wife gently in the back seat and followed her in, closing the door after him. Then, Alan stepped on the gas. Wait until we get home, okay? Brad said. Haley pouted in disappointment, tears once again threatening to fall. Amy stood beside the other car that Brad and Tyler had arrived in. She heaved a sigh of relief. She could finally breathe again. It felt as if she had finally returned to Earth after a long time in outer space. However, the feeling was short-lived. Amy suddenly felt a sensation on her back, like lasers boring into her. She instinctively knew where it was coming from, so she turned around to face it. Her eyes widened as she watched Tyler striding toward her, his expression cold. Her heart raced, and she stepped back. Panicking, she opened the car and jumped into the back seat, quickly locking the doors. He placed his hands on his waist, surprised at the speed of his fiancée's reaction. He was also confused. Did she mistake him for Brad? She'd never been petrified of him before. Was she scared of being punished? He slammed his palms on top of the car, and a grin flashed across his face. Amy would not get away scot-free. How else would he make sure she didn't pull such a stunt, or worse, again? He breathed deeply and stared at the tinted window. His face looked serious, and his eyes narrowed. It looked like he could see her. Well, my dear, are you satisfied with yourself? Did you want a new fiancé so badly that you would have me die at your best friend's hands? Tyler's voice boomed, startling her. Episode 355, Out of Reach. Amy bit her lip before exhaling to calm herself. She moved near the window. I'm sorry, Mr. Beauty, but I couldn't help it. Your name just slipped out. Besides, you should be grateful that you're the first person I think of when I'm in trouble. It's your fault for always being my hero, she said. Tyler opened and closed his mouth like a fish, speechless. This woman, he thought, how could she be so shameless that even when I was close to death, she could still twist things? How could she be so talented at stirring up trouble? And how come this ended up as my fault again? Open the door, he demanded. He was not his usual calm self. But you're going to punish me. Did you think you could escape by locking the doors? She didn't reply. It was futile to hide. He might even break the window if he wanted to. You have 10 seconds. She panicked. But can't you just forgive me this time? I swear I'll behave now. 9. Hey, are you listening? I will open it if... 8. Promise you'll spare me. 7. I already said sorry. Must you be so harsh? 6. I'm still a lady and I'm still... 5. You idiot. 4. Come on, just this once, please. 3. Hey. 2. Okay, I get it, but even if you don't love me, I'm still your fiancé, okay? Tyler fell silent, astounded. Her last words echoed inside his brain and his mood soured. The car door opened and he entered, causing Amy to jolt.
His aura flared, and she felt the same way she did when Brad was furious with her. She raised her white flag and accepted her fate. "Do whatever you want. I won't try to escape from it anymore," she said as she looked down. Her voice, no longer mischievous, seemed drained of energy. She felt bad for throwing Tyler into the snake pit to fend for himself, but she had uttered Tyler's name before she had even realized it. There hadn't been anyone else she could think of to help her at that moment but her fiancé. She had depended on him too much when she had been in danger, so much so that she could no longer imagine her future without him. The realization made Amy want to tear up. She felt so grateful for having him in her life. But she knew he was only with her out of responsibility. He never left her or went too far from her. Yet, he never advanced closer to her, not even by an inch. He was her Superman, someone seemingly out of reach, a fleeting dream. But what right had she to complain? She had been the one who had told him she wanted to be free, after all. "I'm sorry, it really wasn't on purpose. I won't complain," Amy said. A second later, Tyler edged her down on the back seat. "You really want to be punished so badly, huh?" Amy stared at him. "I know my mistakes. Besides, I don't even have enough energy to run now." "Not when my Superman is the one after me," she replied. Tyler brushed away the strands of hair covering half of Amy's lips, about to smirk. Then his face darkened. "What happened to your lips?" Amy shrugged. "Oh, this? No worries. The bastard slap was nothing compared to my father's." Tyler suddenly released her and climbed out of the car, leaving his fiancée puzzled. She rose slowly. His aura was blazing wildly, and his bloodlust was so intense that even his subordinates who had been inside another car felt the demon awaken. Quickly, they got out of the car and stood straight before him. "Where are those scumbags?" he asked, his voice terrifying. One of his men answered. "They were taken to the police station. I think they're about to arrive there now." Tyler gritted his teeth. His eyes blazed red. "Tell them the plan has changed. Make them feel so much pain that death would be a blessing." Episode 356. We're home. Amy was still in shock when Tyler returned to the car. His aura was cold and dark, and his usual calm demeanor was gone. He looked as though he had just defeated an enemy. "What just happened? Mr. Beauty, can you please stop turning into a beast? Please just be your normal, beautiful self. You scare me when you're like this," she thought as she cried. She moved to the farthest corner of the back seat. She had never been so scared of Tyler before, probably because every time his mood had turned dangerous, she had played one of her mischievous tricks to divert his attention and calm his terrifying aura. She didn't know what to do since she had been banned from touching and flirting with him. After a few minutes, the car started moving, but his aura remained. Amy wasn't used to the deafening silence and wished that he would yell at her. The atmosphere was suffocating, and she was growing restless. She cleared her throat softly and waited for a reaction, but he didn't even bat an eyelid. She took a deep breath and gathered what was left of her courage. "Mr. Beauty," she said, "have you thought about my punishment? Just let me know so I can prepare myself." "Shut up," he said. His cold voice sent a shiver down her spine, and her mouth dropped open in shock. What happened to him? Has he really turned into a beast? He told me to shut up. Wait, is that my punishment? Seriously? He banned me from flirting and touching him, and now he's banning me from talking? That's totally heartless, she thought. The other car sped back to the Clark mansion. Haley, who had curled up in Brad's lap, was muttering to herself.
Her head rested on his shoulder and her arms were wrapped around his neck.
Don't worry, Sean. Mommy's right here. I'm not going to leave you again. Just wait for me, okay?
She said. Brad's heart ached as she mumbled through her sniffles. He knew that the pain she felt from leaving her son was still fresh in her memory, and that it would take a long time for her scars to heal. He held her tightly and wished he could take all her pain away. He didn't know how to, so he just stroked her hair and whispered, "It's okay. Everything's going to be okay now." She seemed to hear his soft words and gentle voice, and her sniffles subsided. He watched her close her eyes, and he felt her warm breath on his neck. He could tell that she was calming down, and he felt content. His feeling didn't last very long, though. He was starting to feel the effects of having her so close to him, and the desire that he felt was making him uncomfortable. This is not the right time, he thought. Haley took a deep breath, and she smelled something that triggered a memory. She knit her brows and thought, where have I smelt that before? The scent was so familiar and comforting that she wondered what it would taste like. She poked her tongue out of her mouth and licked his neck. He froze and his eyes widened. He stopped stroking her hair and took a deep breath as he felt his defenses crumbling. His neck was burning. He tried to maintain his self-control, but she licked him again. He started stroking her hair again to distract himself, as she kept licking him. "Haley, not now," he said through gritted teeth, but she didn't stop. Alan, glancing back from the driver's seat, noticed that things were heating up in the back seat. He didn't dare to look too closely. He just drove faster and tried to get back as quickly as possible. "Hang on, boss. We'll be home soon," he thought. Haley pulled Brad's face towards her and licked him again. He patted her head and said, "Not now." She tightened her grip on his neck and kissed him. Alan, who had glanced up again, drove even faster. "We'll get her home soon, boss," he thought. Brad felt like he could no longer restrain his desire and wanted to get her home so she could rest. She licked his neck again and he started sweating. "Hurry up, Alan," he thought. He stroked her hair again and kissed her forehead. After what seemed like an eternity, the car stopped. He looked at her and said, "Darling, we're home." Episode 357, Time to Rest. Haley didn't seem to have heard him. She licked his neck again and said, "Darling, you taste good." She still couldn't remember where she had smelled the scent before, but it tasted as wonderful as it smelled. Brad gazed at her and tried to block out his desire. Her eyes were sparkling and her cheeks were flushed. She looked stunning. He felt like a hungry beast, but he knew that she was not herself. He ran his fingers along her collarbone and said, "Not here, not now." She kissed him, hoping to identify the taste. "I want to eat you," she said. His eyes filled with desire and his heart raced. For a moment, he forgot that she was drunk and his body ached with desire. Then he felt her tongue on his neck again. "Haley, let's wait," he said, and kissed her forehead again. He wrapped his arms around her. A sound outside the car caught his attention. He looked out and froze in shock.
Dad? Mom? Are you in there? Why aren't you coming out?
Sean asked as he peered through the window. Haley recognized the voice and sat bolt upright as though she had just awakened from a dream.
Sean? Sweetie? I'm here.
She exclaimed as she tried to open the door. Brad reached out and stopped her, putting an arm around her waist. She protested.
Let go! Sean, I want to see Sean.
He panicked and tried to think of a way to stall her for a few minutes.
He didn't want their son to see her in her current state.
Let's just wait a minute, he said. You've had a rough day. Let's both calm down first.
Calm down? I'm perfectly calm, she said, her voice rising. He wondered how much she remembered about the fight outside the bar. He stroked her hair for a minute and then looked at her.
Okay, let's go,
he said. She quickly opened the door and jumped out. When she saw Sean, she started crying. She grabbed him and hugged him tightly. Sweetie, I missed you so much, she said. He rubbed her back gently. Mommy, please don't cry, he said. He saw Brad stepping out of the car and shot him a cold glare. What did you do to her? He asked, looking displeased. Brad tousled his hair and said,
She's had a rough day, so she's very emotional. You need to help me get her into bed so that she can rest, okay?
Sean nodded obediently and said, Mommy, let's go in now. When she didn't respond, he looked up at his father. She fell asleep, he said. Brad scratched his head for a moment. Then he picked her up and carried her inside, heading toward the bedroom. He gently set her down on the bed. Sean looked at him with serious eyes and said, It's okay. I'll take care of her. Brad smiled and left them alone. He went into the bathroom and took a shower.
Masakit ang likod mo? Dapat magpa-check up ka na sa ospital.
Mahal magpa-ospital.
Episode 358. What happened last night? Haley woke up the next morning with a hangover. Amy brought her some tea, and she drank it quickly. Sean had already gone to school, so she took a shower and joined Amy in the dining room for breakfast. Do you feel better now? Amy asked. She nodded. Your tea really helped. My hangover's gone, she said. Amy sighed in relief and asked, How much of last night do you remember? She scratched her head and tried to recall what had happened, but all she remembered was talking in the bar. I passed out, didn't I? She asked. I can't remember anything after that. Did something happen? What did I do? Amy smiled. Of course she doesn't remember, she thought. She was tempted to tell her, but decided that it was up to Brad, especially since she had been banned from talking too much. She said, Yeah, you passed out. Brad brought you home, so you should ask him. Speaking of Brad, where is he? Has he already gone to work? Amy coughed awkwardly. She had been hoping to wait until after breakfast to tell her. Actually, he's sick. Haley jumped up from the table, her eyes wide. What happened? Where is he? She asked. A deep voice answered, I'm right here. She turned and saw him leaning against the doorframe. When she saw his messy hair and sky blue pajamas, her heart skipped a beat. It was the first time she had seen him in something other than gray or black pajamas. She reached for him and asked, Are you sick? What happened? She placed her palm on his forehead. You have a fever. Let's get you back to bed, she said. She took his hand to lead him upstairs, but he pulled her toward him. It's fine. It's just my allergy, he said as he hugged her. She knit her brows. Allergy? It hasn't rained in a while. Why? I accidentally took a cold shower, he said. How can you accidentally? He cut her off. My body was so hot that I didn't notice how cold the water was. She could tell from the look in his eyes that he was being honest, but she wondered if he was leaving something out. What happened? How could he have not noticed the cold water? He wouldn't make that kind of mistake, she thought. Did you get drunk? She asked. No, but I wasn't myself, he said. Huh? What? Nothing bad happened, he said. But I was under your spell. It was hard to resist you. She was curious and a little worried.
You told me that I tasted good, and that you wanted to eat me, and you kept licking me,
he said. I licked you? She asked in shock.
Yes, several times.
She was speechless, and her face turned as red as a tomato. She looked into his eyes and saw again that he was telling the truth. Images flashed through her mind as she slowly started to remember. She covered her face in embarrassment. Does he really have to remind me? Is he trying to punish me? She wondered. I was drunk, I guess, although I don't remember drinking very much. And I don't remember what I did, so can we just forget about it? Anyway, we need to get you back upstairs. You have to rest. Come on, she said, trying to change the subject. He didn't budge.
Haley, why did you get drunk? Was it because of Lena?
He asked. She looked shocked and confused.
I'm sorry. I really didn't know what she was up to,
he said. Brad had already asked Amy why Haley had been drinking, but it was Tyler who had answered his question. He had said that Haley was jealous of Lena. He had also said that Lena had been fantasizing about him, and his own cluelessness had encouraged her. He had had a restless night and had wanted to talk to Haley as soon as he could.
I promise that it won't happen again. I've already sent her back to Laskamar, and I won't hire any more women,
he said. He looked so determined that she wanted to cry. She could see the emotion in his eyes, and it melted her heart. She stepped closer to him and reached out to stroke his hair. You're so sweet, she said as her eyes sparkled with joy. She had planned to talk to him about Lena, since she didn't want her to work so closely with him. But he had already dealt with her. He's so perfect, she thought. I'll always trust you, Brad. You're mine, and I'll never let anyone take you from me, she said. His eyes widened, but before he could respond, he heard Tyler's voice. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you should know that our parents and your grandfather are coming, he said. Episode 359, Eavesdropping. Brad knit his brows. He looked unhappy, and Haley looked nervous. As far as she knew, she hadn't met any of Brad's relatives other than Tyler, and she felt uneasy. Your parents are coming? She asked. Brad could see how flustered she was.
What's wrong? You don't want them to come?
She shook her head. No, it's not like that, she said. It's just that I'm kind of nervous. He looked surprised.
Nervous?
She nodded awkwardly and said, Other than Tyler, I've never met any of your family before, so... She paused and bit her lip. He was amused, and he ruffled her hair gently. She was behaving like a nervous teenager who was about to meet her date's parents for the first time.
Don't be afraid. They don't bite, he reassured her as he kept stroking her hair.
She reached up and held his wrist to stop him. I'm not afraid, and I'm sure they're good people. I'm just a little nervous. What if they don't like me?
Why wouldn't they like you? He asked.
It happens sometimes, she said. You're handsome, rich, powerful, and intelligent. You're basically perfect. What if they want someone equally perfect?
You're that perfect someone. Why wouldn't they want you? He asked.
She was speechless. She gazed at him and saw how serious he was, and her breath caught in her throat. She had a healthy amount of self-esteem, but she'd always thought of him as a king and herself as just a soldier. She revolved around him like the earth around the sun, and she knew that other people didn't consider her worthy of him.
Don't worry, you're perfect, and you're the one for me. I won't let anyone question that, no matter who they are,
he said. His tone was firm and indisputable. Haley's heart started pounding. His words were so sweet that she forgot how nervous she was. Did his fever make him even sweeter? Everything he said today has been so sweet, she thought. Before she could speak, he turned to Tyler and said, "Take Amy with you and try to delay them." Tyler creased his forehead. "Huh? What?" he asked. "Take them on a tour of the city or something. Just don't let them come here today." "Why not?" Tyler asked. "I'm sick and don't want to be disturbed. I need to rest. And pick Sean up after school and take him with you," Brad said. Tyler started to say, but he was cut off. "And remind the staff that today is their day off." His instructions left Haley and Tyler speechless. Tyler cursed to himself and thought, "That love-struck fool. He's not sick. He just wants to be alone with Haley. And when did he start giving people the day off?" Haley spoke up. "Are you sure? Won't your parents get angry?" She looked worried again. He patted her head and said, "They won't mind. They've been wanting to spend some time with Sean, and they'll have Tyler and Amy to entertain them." Before she could respond, he leaned over and rested his head on her shoulder. She gasped when she felt his heat. "You're burning up. You need to go back to bed right now," she said as she escorted him toward the stairs. He looked past her and locked eyes with Tyler, who understood immediately. "Right. I get it. He's so shameless that he wants me to get every living being out of the house so that he can be alone with her," he thought. He and Amy could still hear part of their conversation as they went upstairs, one slow step at a time. "Brad, I think at least the butler should stay in case." "You're the only one I need." "Are you sure? I can get Tyler to help you up the stairs," she said. "No need. Just call me your darling again, and I can run." "Huh?" She sounded confused. "Do you remember that you said it to me last night?" he asked. Okay. If I say it, can we stop talking about last night?" "Okay," he agreed. "Darling, let's get you up the stairs," she said. Amy was so engrossed in their conversation that she didn't notice Tyler reaching out to her. She felt a flick on her forehead and turned to him. "Stop eavesdropping," he said. She snorted and said, "Why? They're so cute. It's like watching a romance movie. Don't you appreciate romance?" He looked annoyed. "Do their public displays of affection bother you? Maybe you could learn from them. You should watch them." "Ouch! Will you stop flicking me?" "Stop it. Let's go," he said, and turned his back on her. She muttered behind his back, "Why is he so cold-hearted? Why can't he be sweet like Brad? Are they really brothers?" He heard her and turned back to look at her, and she gasped and covered her mouth. "I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't mean it. It just slipped out. Let's go," she said, running away as fast as she could. Episode 360. A Sweet Memory. The house was quiet. The white curtain in the bedroom window danced in the cold, gentle breeze as the morning light penetrated it. Brad was lying quietly in bed with a smile on his face as Haley put a wet cloth on his forehead. His eyes sparkled with joy, and he seemed happy that he had gotten sick. He looked weak, but ecstatic, and the look in his eyes eased her worries. Even though he was the one who had gotten sick, he seemed to be making her feel better. His face was red and he was covered in hives. Haley felt a twinge of guilt, knowing that she was the cause of his suffering. She bit her lip. "Do you feel itchy?" she asked gently. He took her hand and pulled her close. "Mm-hmm. Right here," he said, pointing to his cheek. "Should I scratch it a little, or will that make it worse?" she asked. She wasn't sure if touching him would help. "It's okay. You don't have to scratch it. A kiss will do," he said. She blinked and blushed. "There you go again. Flirting even when you're this sick, she thought. He liked the way she looked when she blushed. He was about to say something, but was interrupted when she leaned in and kissed his cheek. I don't see how it will help with the itching, though, she said. He laughed and said, But you still did it. Because you asked me to, she said. I couldn't possibly refuse a request from my sick little... She paused and looked as though she didn't know how to finish her sentence. Brad frowned. Her sick little what? Does she think I'm frail? Whatever she was going to call me, she'll have to make it up to me in kisses, he thought. Then kiss me here too. It itches. And over here too. And then here. And down here, he said as he pointed to his forehead, nose, cheek, and neck. Haley was speechless. He is the king of shamelessness, she thought. But she went along with him and gently kissed everything that he had pointed to, as though she could kiss his discomfort away. When she was done, she looked up at him, and her eyes widened when she saw that he was even redder than before. Did I make it worse? She asked. He pulled her into his arms. Don't worry, he said. They don't actually itch at all. But you're so red. I think your skin reacted to my kisses, she said. Not my skin. My body reacted, he said. Yeah, I can see that. Your body reacted and got worse. No more kisses for you, mister, she exclaimed. He looked devastated. He couldn't bear the thought of not getting any more kisses. You don't understand. You don't understand. I'm just blushing, he said, his face still red. She was shocked. Have you taken your medicine? She asked, changing the subject. Mm-hmm. Don't worry. I've taken everything already. The only thing left is you. Huh? Me? She asked. Mm-hmm. Your medicine for my soul, he said. She was too surprised to respond, so he kept talking. I want to kiss you so much, but I don't want you to get sick. So you need to help me recover quickly, so that I can kiss you again. What can I do to help you? She asked. Call me darling, he said. That's it. And stay here in my arms, he added. Okay, darling, I'll stay here with you. She waited for his reply and was surprised to discover that he had fallen asleep. His fatigue had finally caught up with him. Hearing his slow, deep breathing, she relaxed. She slipped an arm around his back and started caressing him gently. Get well soon, darling, she said with a slight smile. Then she closed her eyes, and they both drifted off to their very own wonderland. Brad opened his eyes several hours later, and he knit his brows when he saw the empty space beside him. He looked at the clock and was surprised to see that it was already past noon. He got out of bed and felt much better. The dizziness and weakness that he had felt were gone. It looks like Haley's magic worked, he thought. He felt his forehead. His fever was gone, so a devilish smile spread across his face. He wouldn't need to hold back any longer. He headed toward the door but stopped when Haley entered. She was dressed in a loose yellow t-shirt, printed with ice cream cones, and she was carrying a bowl of soup on a tray. When she saw him, she turned red. With his messy hair and pink pajama top printed with bright yellow cartoon ducklings, he looked adorable. A few hours earlier, he had been sweating so much that she had gone to look in his closet for a new pajama top. She had sighed after seeing the monochromatic blacks and grays in his closet. She had grabbed one at random so that she could change him, but she had also called one of the bodyguards and asked him to go and buy Brad a new set of pajamas. He had video called her from the store so that she could see the different patterns and choose one that she liked. Darling, you look so adorable, she said,
and she leaned in to pinch his cheek like a grandmother would do to a grandchild. He was confused, but then saw what he was wearing. His reaction was priceless. He looked at his pajama top as if he were looking at an alien from outer space.
Sit down and have some lunch, she said.
He looked up at her and agreeably sat down. When he saw what she had prepared, a sweet memory came to him.
You tried cooking this for me before,
So it was my turn, she said. She was reliving the same memory. She blew on a spoonful of soup and raised it to his mouth.
Open wide, darling,
she said, but he just stared at her. My favor is gone, but to recover fully, I'll need a kiss after every spoonful, he said with a straight face and serious eyes.
Haley choked. Is he getting back at me for last night?
She wondered. He gazed at her with the sweet optimism of a puppy who knew its owner would give in to its wishes. She looked at him, and she knew she couldn't let him down. He was irresistible, and she had a feeling that she would agree to anything he wanted, no matter how ridiculous it might be. She was just about to agree, but then she looked at the bowl and saw how much soup she had made.
He wants a kiss after every spoonful. How many kisses will that be?
She wondered.